You really expect me to believe you just walked in here dressed like that?
Yes,
Those
sir.
real ribbons?
Yes, sir. United States Marine Corps, active duty, name's on the plate.
Mind telling me what you're doing at a gas station in full dress blues?
On my way back from a funeral detail. Needed some coffee for the drive.
You got ID?
What happens when a cop arrests an active duty black Marine in full uniform at a gas station, and the Pentagon treats it like a national security incident? On September 14th, 2024, Officer Bradley Klein rolled into a Chevron off Highway 301 in rural North Carolina and decided the Marine standing by the coffee machine couldn't possibly be legitimate. The man he publicly humiliated was Staff Sergeant Darius Coleman, a decorated infantry Marine with 2 combat deployments, a combat action ribbon, and a spotless service record. Coleman was 29 years old, 10 years into his career, and on approved leave heading home to surprise his grandmother for her birthday. He'd worn that uniform through ceremonies, funerals, promotions, and moments that mattered. But the second Klein saw him, he locked on a one thought: fake. The bodycam timestamp read 18 hours, 7 minutes, and 41 seconds when Klein stepped out, already smirking, already reaching for authority. In less than 5 minutes, Coleman would be in handcuffs, accused of a crime he never committed, while strangers watched and recorded. And what Klein didn't understand was this: when you interfere with a Marine in uniform, you're not just disrespecting a man, you're creating a federal problem with the full weight of the Department of Defense behind it. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and hit subscribe, because the final twist in this case stunned even senior military officials. Staff Sergeant Darius Coleman wasn't some random guy playing dress-up. He was assigned to 2nd Marine Division, an infantry staff NCO trusted to lead Marines in high-stress situations where hesitation gets people killed. 2 deployments. 1 IED blast that left scars he never talked about. A reputation for being calm, even when chaos broke loose. That Saturday evening, he wasn't thinking about politics, racism, or police. He was thinking about family, about showing up at his grandmother's house like a surprise gift. He stopped at the Chevron for fuel, a bottle of water, and a coffee, still wearing his dress blues because he'd come straight from a ceremony earlier that day. He paid at the counter, nodded politely to the clerk, and turned toward the door. That's when Officer Bradley Klein slid into his path like he'd been waiting for the moment. "Hold up." Klein's voice had that tone, half accusation, half entertainment, like he was about to expose a fraud for fun. Coleman stopped, respectful, hands relaxed at his sides. Klein stared at the uniform, then Coleman's face, then the uniform again. "That uniform real, or you buy it off the internet?" Coleman blinked once, confused. "I'm United States Marine Corps officer." Klein scoffed. "Sure you are. A guy like you in dress blues." The phrase hung in the air like poison. Coleman's jaw tightened, but he stayed disciplined. "Sir, I have my CAC. Military ID. You can verify me right now." Klein didn't move toward verification. He moved toward domination. His hand drifted through his cuffs as his other hand hovered near his weapon. "Stolen valor is a felony," Klein said louder, for the whole store to hear. "Hands where I can see them." The clerk froze behind the counter. A customer at the cooler lifted a phone and started recording. Coleman's instincts warned him the situation was turning dangerous fast. Not because he was guilty, because Klein had already decided he was. Coleman took a slow breath the way he'd been trained. "Control the room. Control yourself." "Officer, I'm Staff Sergeant Darius Coleman," he said clearly so the bodycam would capture every word. "My military ID is in my wallet. I'm requesting you verify my identity." Klein's eyes narrowed, like verification was an insult. "Don't reach for anything." Coleman raised both palms open. "I'm not reaching. I'm asking permission to retrieve my CAC." Klein stepped closer, chest out, invading space. "Stolen valor is serious time," he said, loud enough for the entire store to hear. Coleman kept his posture straight. "It's not stolen. It's issued. Everything on this uniform is regulation." Klein scoffed. "Where'd you get it? eBay? Army surplus?" Coleman's voice sharpened. "From the United States Marine Corps." Klein smiled like he'd caught a liar. "Turn around." Coleman didn't move. "Not defiance, law." "Sir, with respect, you have no probable cause. I'm standing in a gas station buying coffee." Klein's tone snapped to aggressive. Probable cause is you're wearing a uniform you didn't earn. Coleman's jaw tightened. I earned it. That's when Klein grabbed his wrist and twisted his arm behind his back. Pain shot through Coleman's shoulder. Every reflex from years of training screamed to react. Yet he went still on purpose. I'm not resisting, Coleman said loud. I am not resisting. Klein yanked harder anyway, knocking Coleman's coffee to the floor. Stop moving, Klein barked, even though Coleman wasn't moving at all. The clerk rushed forward. Officer, he didn't do anything. Klein shouted, back up, and forced Coleman's arms tighter behind him. Cold metal cuffs snapped shut with 2 sharp clicks. In that moment, a Marine in full dress blues stood handcuffed in public, accused of a federal crime, because one officer decided a black man couldn't be real. The clerk stood frozen, one hand over her mouth, staring at Coleman's uniform like the world had flipped upside down. A customer near the coolers was openly recording, phone held high, whispering, "This is crazy," under his breath. Coleman kept his breathing slow, shoulders squared, refusing to give Klein any excuse to escalate further. Officer, you're hurting me, Coleman said clearly, calm but firm. I'm not resisting. I am complying under protest. Klein shoved him toward the door anyway, like he wanted the whole parking lot to see. Outside, the evening air felt colder. Klein walked him past the pumps like a trophy. You like pretending to be a hero? Klein sneered. Coleman didn't answer. He stared forward, eyes focused, staying disciplined. Then a pickup truck rolled in and stopped hard near the entrance. A middle-aged man stepped out wearing a faded Vietnam veteran cap. He took one look at Coleman's ribbons, the sharp crease of the uniform, the way it sat perfectly on his frame, and his expression changed instantly. What the hell is going on? The veteran demanded. Klein puffed up. Stolen valor arrest. The veteran pointed at Coleman's chest. That's a combat action ribbon. You don't buy that at a costume shop. Klein snapped. Back away. The veteran didn't move. I did 30 years in the Navy. My nephew's a Marine. I know what I'm looking at. He turned to Coleman. Son, you active duty? Coleman nodded once. Yes, sir. The veteran pulled out his phone. Then I'm calling the base right now. Klein's confidence flickered for the first time, but pride kept him reckless. Call whoever you want, Klein muttered, tightening his grip on Coleman's arm. Coleman kept his voice level. Officer Klein, he said, reading the name tag. You are making a mistake that will destroy your career. Klein laughed. My career? You're going to jail. The veteran, already dialing, looked Klein dead in the face. No, you are. The veteran's call changed the entire atmosphere. Within 4 minutes, a county sheriff's cruiser turned into the Chevron like it had been summoned by force. Then a state trooper pulled in behind it, lights flashing. Trooper Elena Park stepped out, 12-year veteran, no panic in her movements, just sharp focus. She walked straight to Klein, then to Coleman, eyes scanning the uniform with professional recognition. What's the situation? Park asked. Klein tried to sound confident. Stolen valor. Fake dress blues. He's resisting. Coleman spoke immediately, controlled and clear. Ma'am, I have not resisted. I am Staff Sergeant Darius Coleman, active duty United States Marine Corps. I requested verification. Officer Klein refused. Park glanced at the cuffs, then at Klein. You verified his identity? Klein hesitated half a second too long. I don't need to. It's obvious. Park's expression hardened. Nothing is obvious. Uncuff him while we verify. Klein bristled. This is my arrest. Park stepped closer, voice low but absolute. No, this is now my scene. Uncuff him. Klein didn't move. Park turned and keyed her radio. Dispatch. Run Marine Corps verification. Contact base duty officer. I need confirmation on Staff Sergeant Darius Coleman. The veteran kept recording, shaking his head. Klein muttered, This is a waste of time. Coleman stared forward, wrists aching, humiliation burning behind his ribs. Then Park's radio crackled with a tone that made everyone go quiet. Trooper Park, standby, confirmation received. Staff Sergeant Darius Coleman is active duty USMC, infantry, currently on authorized leave. Duty officer requests details on why he's detained. Park looked at Klein like he'd set his own house on fire. He's legitimate, she said. Uncuff him. Now. Klein's face drained fast, from angry red to a sick pale like reality had finally caught him. He fumbled with the key like his fingers didn't work, then popped the cuffs open. Coleman rolled his wrists slowly, red marks already rising where the metal had bit into his skin. Trooper Park stepped between them like a wall. "Staff Sergeant," she said, voice respectful, "I apologize for this. You should never have been detained." Coleman nodded once, controlled. "Thank you, ma'am." Klein tried to salvage it with excuses. "I was just doing my job. Stolen valor's real." Park cut him off immediately. "Your job is to verify before you arrest. You had a uniform, nameplate, ribbons, and a calm, compliant subject offering ID." Klein snapped back, desperate. He could have had fake ID. Coleman stared at him in disbelief. "Fake ID to buy coffee?" Park turned her radio back on. "Dispatch. Tell the base we have positive ID and the Marine is released. Also notify supervisor that Officer Klein conducted an unlawful arrest." The word unlawful hit Klein like a punch. The veteran walked closer, still filming. "You just embarrassed the Marine Corps," he said. Klein tried to intimidate him. "Stop recording." The veteran smiled coldly. "No, this is evidence." Coleman took a step back, straightening his uniform instinctively, smoothing the sleeve like he could erase what happened. But the parking lot was full now. People staring. Phones up. The clerk stood near the door with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I'm so sorry." Coleman's voice remained calm, but it carried weight. "Officer Klein," he said, you didn't arrest a suspect. You arrested the uniform. And the Pentagon doesn't play about that." 10 minutes later, it stopped being local. A black SUV pulled in hard with government plates. Then another. 2 men in suits stepped out first, scanning the scene like they were arriving to secure a crime scene. Behind them came a woman with a badge clipped to her belt, posture rigid, eyes sharp. She didn't ask questions casually. She took control. "NCIS," she said, holding up credentials. "Who detained Staff Sergeant Coleman?" Klein's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Trooper Park stepped forward. "Ma'am, the Marine has been released." Officer Bradley Klein initiated the arrest for stolen valor without verification. The NCIS agent's gaze snapped to Klein like a spotlight. "Officer Klein," she said slowly, "do you understand you unlawfully detained active duty military personnel?" Klein tried to backpedal. It was a misunderstanding. The agent didn't blink. A misunderstanding does not include handcuffing a Marine in dress blues while saying, "A guy like you can't be real." Klein's throat tightened. Park added quietly, "Those words are on bodycam." The NCIS agent turned to Coleman, her tone respectful but urgent. "Staff Sergeant, are you injured?" Coleman lifted his wrists, showing the marks. "Bruising. No medical emergency." The agent nodded. "We will document everything." She then looked back at Klein with open disgust. "This isn't just civil rights. This can be interference with military operations. Do you have any idea what your department just triggered?" Klein's voice cracked. "I didn't know." The agent stepped closer, lowering her voice like a verdict. "You didn't want to know." Behind her, one suited man spoke into a phone. "Yes, sir." Pentagon notified, requesting immediate action. Coleman's eyes narrowed. Pentagon. The word alone changed the air. Every bystander stopped talking. Even Klein stopped breathing like he finally understood. This wasn't going away. This wasn't a complaint. This was a federal case being born in real time in a Chevron parking lot. The Pentagon call set off a chain reaction that Klein couldn't control no matter how badly he wanted to rewind time. Within 30 minutes, Klein's supervisor arrived, trying to speak softly like this could be managed. But NCIS didn't treat it like a routine incident. They treated it like a threat to the military. The agent ordered Klein's body cam secured immediately. She collected witness statements on the spot, including the clerk, the veteran, and the customer who recorded everything from inside the store. Trooper Park replayed the moment Klein said, "Active duty doesn't look like you," and the veteran whispered, "He just ended his own life." Coleman gave his statement like a professional. Exact words, exact actions, no exaggeration, no emotion. "I offered ID. I requested verification. I was cuffed anyway." The NCIS agent then pulled Klein aside. You are being investigated for deprivation of rights under color of law, she said. False arrest. Assault. And because the victim is active duty military, the Department of Defense is referring this for federal prosecution. Klein's face collapsed. Federal, he whispered. Yes, she replied. Federal. The supervisor tried to intervene. Agent, can we handle? She cut him off. No. Then came the worst part for the department, the pattern review. NCIS requested Klein's stop history, complaint history, and bodycam archive. And what they found made this explode nationwide. In the last 3 years, Klein had stopped 13 people for stolen valor. 12 of them were Black or Latino. 10 were legitimate service members. 2 had been arrested and later cleared. The report didn't call it bad judgment. It called it what it was, a pattern. And once the Pentagon saw that word, pattern, this became about more than Coleman. It became about systemic violation of military personnel. That's when the charge list grew like a monster. And that's why the number 62 years entered the case. The federal indictment hit like an earthquake. The U.S. Attorney's Office filed charges under 18 U.S.C. 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, with enhancement for bodily injury and use of a weapon during unlawful detention. Then came false imprisonment, obstruction, and official misconduct. The Department of Justice added a civil rights pattern and practice investigation into the entire department. On the military side, the Pentagon's legal counsel pushed an additional referral: interference with the lawful activities of an active duty service member. In plain words, Klein didn't just humiliate Coleman, he disrupted a Marine's authorized leave while he was traveling in uniform. Prosecutors argued it was an abuse of power that endangered a trained combat Marine, escalating a situation that could have turned deadly if Coleman had panicked or reacted like a fighter. And the courtroom footage was devastating. The phrase, "a guy like you in dress blues," echoed through the jury box again and again. Coleman testified in full uniform, standing tall, explaining every ribbon and every stripe with quiet dignity. "This uniform represents discipline and service," he said. "I wore it with pride. And that officer treated it like a costume because of my skin." The veteran testified next. "I've seen real Marines," he said. "That man looked like one. The only fake thing there was the officer's integrity." Klein's defense tried the classic excuse: mistake, misunderstanding, public safety. But the prosecution played the body cam. They showed Klein refusing verification, refusing supervision, choosing humiliation over procedure. The jury didn't deliberate long. Guilty. And when the judge read the sentencing guidelines, the courtroom went silent. The max exposure across combined counts totaled 62 years. Klein's knees nearly buckled. He whispered, "Please," like begging would undo evidence. It wouldn't, because the judge wasn't sentencing a mistake. He was sentencing a message. Sentencing day, the judge didn't smile once. He looked straight at Klein and spoke like he was addressing every officer watching nationwide. "You did not make a simple error," the judge said. "You used your authority to humiliate and unlawfully restrain a man who has served this country with honor." He referenced the word from bodycam, "active duty doesn't look like you," and called them a confession of bias. Then he outlined the damage: an active duty Marine placed in cuffs without probable cause, public humiliation, physical injury to the wrists, and an escalation that could have ended in lethal force. The judge also noted the pattern: repeated stops targeting minority service members, repeated refusals to verify identity, repeated abuse of power. "This court will not treat prejudice as a minor flaw," he said. Klein was sentenced to decades in federal prison, with additional state penalties stacked, bringing the total exposure near the maximum. His badge was revoked. His pension was gone. His department entered a federal consent decree. Meanwhile, Staff Sergeant Coleman didn't ask to become a headline. He wanted coffee and family. But he still showed restraint, discipline, and dignity while being treated like a criminal in the uniform he earned. After the verdict, Coleman announced he was creating a legal support fund for service members unlawfully profiled while in uniform, saying, "If they'll do it to a Marine in dress blues, they'll do it to anyone." And that's the lesson. Justice isn't just punishment, it's prevention. To summarize, Officer Bradley Klein's arrest of a black Marine wasn't just a disgraceful moment. It became a Pentagon-level federal case with consequences so heavy it ended a career, destroyed a department's reputation, and sent a message across the country. If you believe service members deserve respect, no matter their race, subscribe and turn on notifications, because tomorrow's story is even more unbelievable.